evening and welcome to another episode of Talk That Get Results. I'm Reverend Webbo Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk Program in K.O. Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis. So give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and when you're getting on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Thank you all again, and by the way, you can follow the live video stream of this program on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel, Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Tonight, Roger Fifield, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and I want to say a special good evening to my fellow panelists. Also, good evening to those who are listening and viewing via the various medias. Webbo, I want to say happy birthday to all those who might be celebrating. One, Khadijah Griffin there in Newcastle, and also Governor Butler in the Camps area. Happy birthday, ladies. I hope you had a wonderful day, and I hope that your night would go just as well or even better. Webbo, for those who are mourning, I want to say, sympathy greetings to you, and of course, you must hold strong to the Lord. The Lord would be a tower of strength and comfort for you. Webbo, I want to invite persons to call in as per usual. It's a program that we can learn from you and you can learn from us, and hence we encourage you to call and interact with us. But just before I move on, I just want to basically say the Honorable Eric Evelyn had a White's Good cleanup on Saturday gone, and it was a really good initiative. Lots of white goods were collected. But what bothers me most, Webbo, is that just the very next day, the Sunday, I drove past a bin in the Gingerland area, a regular dumpster bin, and there were so many white goods that was piled up by that particular bin in the Business Gut area. And, it left to be desired, because I know the Honorable Eric Evelyn would have gone out of his way. He would have advertised it. I heard it right here on Vaughan. I saw it on lots of persons' status and various media and stuff like that. And to see that the very following day, persons, pile up a lot of garbage, white goods, I think that we can do better, and we ought to do better, Webbo. Webbo, just to finish up my opening statement, Webbo, I'm looking forward, Webbo, for a fruitful discussion as per usual. And I want to thank you once again, Webbo, for the invitation. Thank you.
The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my fellow panelists around the table. Let me say a very wonderful good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio, the only powerhouse of the entire Eastern Caribbean. Let me say good evening to all those who are listening here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and to those who are listening further afield in the neighboring islands throughout North and South America, all the way on the Asian continent, wherever they may be. A very wonderful good evening or good afternoon or good morning to them. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I want to join Roger in offering some words of condolences. I want to firstly, Webbo, offer my very deepest condolences to the family of Mr. Glasgow, Keith Glasgow, former teacher, former permanent secretary here on the island of Nevis, who I believe done yeoman service here on the island of Nevis. I know that he was keenly associated with our annual Culturama activity here on the island, especially when it comes to the Calypso side of it. So I want to take this opportunity to offer my very deepest condolences to his entire family on his passing. I believe that his loss would definitely be a great loss to his entire family. Webbo, I also want to offer my condolences to the family of Matron Maureen Stapleton. I believe that it was just a few weeks ago that we would have laid her late husband to rest, Mr. Nelson Stapleton. And to see now that she has departed this life, I believe that the family must be going through a very, very difficult and turbulent time. First, Mr. Stapleton, and now Matron Stapleton. I believe that the family, I can only imagine what they might be going through, and I want to, from this rostrum of Van Radio, offer my very profound and deep condolences on the loss of Matron. I believe she was one of those nurses who was what I would call a person who have always gone above and beyond her call of duty, and someone who I often felt would live up to our motto in terms of putting country above self. So I really believe that the loss for the family must be feeling extremely deeply wounded at this time. Webbo, I also want to offer condolences to the family of Mr. Carlton Williams, who was laid to rest last Thursday. I believe a gentleman from the Gingerland area, better known to most as Cherry. He worked at the Nevis Water Department, I am told, for 3 or 4 decades. I am still trying to get the exact length of period that he worked for. But I believe, Webbo, that he was one of those individuals who, coming out of the dark ages, so to speak, in terms of our water infrastructure, would have played a tremendous role as a pump operator there in the Foothills area in Gingerland, who was able to provide that vital resource and control that vital resource, so to speak, for the people of Gingerland that ended up all the way down into Charlestown. So I want to use this opportunity to say and to express my very deep condolences to his family, his daughter Joyce, and the entire family, and I would even be a Webbo, the whole of Nevis, because he would have been one of those individuals who, quiet, unassuming, go about his business in the shadows, but was able to make sure that the people of Nevis, especially on that side of the island, the Gingerland side of the island, coming all the way down, had water. So I want to say how thankful we are for his services. I believe that his many decades of serving the people of Nevis will definitely be remembered, and it will not go unnoticed. And I'm hoping that, Webbo, that while we reflect on these individuals and all of those other individuals and families who are in mourning tonight, and the contribution that they would have made to the island of Nevis, that we will always remember them. Webbo, I want to wish all those who are celebrating. I believe Roger indicated a number of persons who are celebrating. Kadisha, cousin of a family, a cousin kind of connection. So I want to say to her happy birthday.
And her son.
and she's keeping things from me, but that's all right. I want to wish you a happy birthday, and all those who are celebrating tonight, Webbo, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, just some accomplishment in their lives. I hope that they are having a wonderful evening tonight, and I hope that they can enjoy their celebration the best way they can and with moderation, and I hope that they can be thankful that they are here to participate in another birthday celebration or whatever accomplishment they have. Webbo, I want to thank you for the invitation, and I'm certainly looking forward to our discussion tonight.
Conrad Niall Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to your hard-working staff here at the Universe Powerhouse, to my colleagues, Mr. Honorable Spencer Brand and Mr. Fifield. Good evening, and to everyone who is in tune to this program by the various means that exist today. Webbo, I would like to invite everyone to participate in this program. It's an interactive program this evening, and just want to say, Webbo, we are coming to the end of another beautiful day in our little island, and I always like to remind the people how beautiful and tranquil this little island is, not to be duplicated nowhere on earth, I suppose. And of course we must be grateful for that. For those that have passed and gone to the great beyond, I would say thanks for your contribution to the existence of life here on island. And for those who are celebrating, I would wish you a hearty celebration. For those who keep knocking on doors that never seems to be opening, I would like to say, when one door is closed, another one is open. For those who have those high expectations of themselves, I would like to say, don't bury your thoughts and put your dreams to reality. Webbo, it's another beautiful day, and I want to say thank you so much for having me once again. And before I let go the mic, I just want to hail up my friends in the international circle, my friends in Connecticut, my friends in Toronto, and to a very particular special lady in Jamaica. And so thank you for tuning in, and I hope you will become a part of this program going forward. And Webbo, I look forward to a very hearty, educated, reactive discussion this evening, Webbo. Thank you so much.
Let me just say a very pleasant good evening to Ted Hobson. So don't ever, let me put it this way. I normally say, did we forget you?
No.
Does an elephant ever forget? Of course not. So Ted, we got you.
Covered.
Right? So just wanted to say that in reference to Ted, and to thank everybody for joining us. Now, if you got anything you want to put on the table, I'll yield. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Brand.
Well, 5 years ago today, the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic, and United States of America saw some 1.2 plus million persons lost their lives, according to data from the CDC. Here in our region, Webbo, Latin America and the Caribbean, we also saw over 1 plus million persons losing their life because of this COVID pandemic. Brazil, 700 plus, the various other Caribbean islands, significant numbers of their persons would have lost their life. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, I believe the number was around 46 or somewhere around there, persons lost their life. Well, why am I speaking about COVID from 5 years ago and a number of persons who may have lost their life? We are now seeing, Webbo, that there is this tariff war that is going on. And when we heard of COVID 5 years ago, we perhaps look at COVID in some distant corner in China. That would not necessarily affect us here in St. Kitts and Nevis or affect us in this region. But it did. And it had a significant impact on our very existence and our lives and our livelihoods. Here it is again, Webbo. We are now seeing this trade war between United States and Canada and Mexico and China and Europe and all of those places. We may look at those situations as distant lands where the impact and the effect may not be so significant on us. But I want our people to pay attention, because these trade wars and tariff wars that is now going on will definitely have some impact on us here in this region. Coming out of COVID, Webbo, we sought to implement certain strategies that I believe try to help to make our region and our people more independent. We try to promote the idea of food security. Plant what you grow and grow more of what you plant and that kind of thing. And I want our people, Webbo, to begin to use some of the same tactics and techniques and mindset that we had during the onset of COVID to try and be a lot more independent. Yes, we are not countries that do a lot of heavy manufacturing, but I want us to begin to develop that mindset where things in these regions will now perhaps become even more challenging. You go in the supermarket in September last year, you may bought a dozen eggs for $15, $16. In 3 months' time, that same 12 eggs, mark you, the eggs haven't gotten any bigger. The eggs haven't gotten any bigger. The price is now almost twice as much. And I want our people to begin to recognize that we often hear the language and the slang that when these countries sneeze, we catch their cold. And I think that our people, if they are not paying attention as close as I hope that they are, that they can begin to start to pay attention, because we will feel some of the impact and effect of this tariff war that is now going on. Just today, I when I left home, I realized that, and if our good friend Mr. Edric W. Stanley was here, he would have probably be one who talking about the stock market. In the last 2 days, I believe the stock market has gone down some 1,300 points. And these are the kind of effects that we are seeing because of this tariff war that is now going on. But the point I'm trying to make, Webbo, that I want our people to pay attention. I want our people to be vigilant. I want our people to be cognizant of the fact that just as COVID had the impact on us, something that occurred in distant lands, across many oceans, and have had the kind of impact on us where our economy literally grind to a screeching halt, our borders closed. We will now be seeing some different impact here in this region, and I just want our people to be mindful of that fact and to pay attention.
Well, you're correct, Mr. Brand. I think there's still the debate whether or not COVID was created in a lab in China or not. But I could assure you that the recent unsettlement which we are experiencing, that the Western world is experiencing, is certainly man-made. There's a guy called Donald Trump, the President of America, seems to be causing quite a lot of ripples across the world, and seems to have gotten everyone seems to be every government now or regions are coming together and talking about this one individual who seems to be changing his mind every 12 to 24 hours about tariffs and so forth. I mean, the stock market certainly have reacted in a way because not because of the tariff, but the constant changing of how much tariffs and which country is going to put it on and implementing it and taking it off 48 hours after create really a massive tidal wave of uncertainty that is really engulfing many countries, and of course we will feel it down here. I suppose he would get serious with one or two of those comments, but everyone seems to be trying to really analyze his and find out his tactics, and it's quite testing. But for sure, it rings a bell once again, where people and region needs to obviously come together. People individually needs to be aware of it and just to realize that they would be impacted. I am not sure how much that mindset did continue after COVID, that we try to be self-sufficient as a region, as an island, as individual. But I believe that we have slipped again and slipped back into that relaxing mode where we think that all is well, really. We have also heard that Donald Trump has made some comments about our dealings with Cuba, and when we talk about self-sufficiency, I think Cuba is a perfect example, and we have so much that we can. There is so much that we can learn from the Cubans in these times. So I really don't know how the government's going to work that out. And I suppose that again, coming together will is one way that we can weather the storm that is really stirred up by Donald Trump. But talking about pandemic, I understand also that there is another
yellow fever
illness on the horizon, which is quite difficult to suppress. I suppose we are not gone beyond the whole global illness circumstance. I believe that even these tariffs will probably help to accentuate these kind of things, where we'll find medications and pharmaceutical products also becoming very expensive and difficult to purchase. We are just at the tail end of most things, I suppose, here in the Caribbean, not being a producer and more consumer orientated. And I suppose that we will have to pay closer attention to Cuba if the governments and the leaders are brave enough to do that, and kind of develop more self-sufficiency here in the Caribbean. I mean, it doesn't come overnight, I suppose, and I'm not sure where the starting point will be, really, but I think we're being totally consumed by foreign goods, foreign everything, and I'm not even sure how well agriculture is doing here on Ireland, because the last food fair, I was told, and I'm to be corrected, I was told most of the products there was from across the island, was from St. Kitts. We certainly need to see more of that happening in Nevis, and with more certainty. I know there was a talk about a broiler production here on island. I'm not sure what has become of that. So I think my opening remarks was crucial in that regards. Don't bury your thoughts and put your dreams to reality, because sometimes you don't know what is around the corner. But what we need, I suppose, is more foresight and more concrete stance when certain things happen and cause us to look in ourselves and trigger our mind to think a certain way. We should really effectuate our thoughts, knowing that it would be a plus for the island, for the region, and because we doesn't have the handle, really, we have the blade, and as Mr. Brand said, America, cough, sneeze, we catch the cold. We know that for so long, but still. And of course, we're talking about technology, we're talking about ableness and abilities, we're talking about economies of scale here, and we are sometimes at a great disadvantage as it relates to production and so forth. Our circumstance is quite peculiar, and so I think government has a lot to do. Governments in the regions have a lot to do. Governments have a lot to do as it relates to forecast, as it relates to implementing and creating that environment and infrastructure that can trigger the minds of the youths to really be innovative. Innovation is not a word that we know very well here in the Caribbean, but I think we just have to dig a lot more deeper than we were digging as it relates to self-sufficiency and just being able to weather these storms. And things can change. I mean, World War III sometimes seems just around the corner. Mm-hmm. And I remember my mom said that when there was World War II, they had to walk all the way from Cotton Ground, and they had to come into town and stand in line to get some rice and all this type of stuff. So we just can't sit and think that nothing would happen. Things constantly would be happening. We are at the tail end of the survival line, it looks like, and we look to each other for support. We look for government for foresight and implementation. We look to the region really to make life worthwhile. And so it's all about us. We probably got to do better and get it together once and for all, really.
Yes, I want to say, Webbo, that I too believe that with what's going on, with the U.S., China, Canada, and the others, will definitely have an impact on us here in the Caribbean, St. Kitts Nevis included. Here in St. Kitts Nevis, we import 90+% of what we consume in terms of food, clothing, etc. As one of my colleagues would have said, we don't have any major manufacturing industries here. So we understand that, all we have are refrigerators, our stoves, microwaves and so forth. We import them. Our food bill, I guess the minister of, could probably, help us here. But, definitely 90+%. And if tariffs are to increase, we have to ask ourselves, what would happen? It would be automatical rise in prices. And when prices rise and upon importation, bearing in mind that you would have to clear customs based on cost, insurance and freight, that automatically would cost you more at the borders. And we know that if you are in business, whether it's supermarket or whatever, what have you, your main aim in business is to get a profit, maximize profit. So automatically you would want to recover what you would have spent. And to recover what you would have spent, you would increase prices. So it would definitely impact us negatively right here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I want to also echo what Mr. Brand would have said in terms of, getting into our backyards, planting, just like what most of us did. Many of us became entrepreneurs, and farmers during COVID, and many of us have stopped for some reason or the other. I would want to encourage us all to continue to farm, what it is said, eat what you grow. And when you eat what you grow, you know exactly what you are eating, what goes into that particular crop, if fertilized, what type of fertilizer, and so forth. So I definitely is one who would advocate for that. I believe that we can do better in terms of farming, in terms of producing. I can remember as a youngster, copra. We used to have plenty coconut trees, coconut palms, right on Penny's Beach and elsewhere. Right where they have the jack strip now, the jackass pasture, that was filled and with coconut palms up until, I think, Hurricane Hugo back in September of 1989. And then the yellow leafing came in sometime thereafter and basically wipe out the coconut palms on Penny's Beach. But the point what I want to make is that places like Dominica, the Commonwealth of Dominica, they imported many coconut palms from right here, mature coconut palms from right here in Nevis. And when we look at Dominica now, to see that coconuts, we are importing coconuts in St. Kitts Nevis from Dominica. It's amazing. It shows you how, the cycle is, things go around. And if we once used to produce those, I believe that we can. And, I know the government in New River, the Coconut Walk area, would have planted, some coconut palms, a few hundred well. And, of course, in Hanley's Road, there is the orchard, where they have a number of different variety of crops and plants. And I think that's a start. But we as individual owners, we have to do our part. We must do our part if we are to be self-sufficient here. When things happen, and there's been lots of talk in recent time about how close we may be to World War III. And if that was supposed to materialize, then what would happen to us here in Little St. Kitts and Nevis? Maybe about a year and a half ago, there was a delay in the major ships coming in that normally come on a weekly basis. And we looked at the shelves in the various supermarkets, and they were as empty can be. So when we really look at these things, we have to look at it realistically, and how it can impact us. If the ships don't come for a week or two, do we have enough so we can survive on for a 3-week period, maybe even up to a month's time? We have to start thinking that way, because we don't have any control. We don't have any control at all in terms of if the ship comes, when they come, what they bring to our shores in terms of supplies. Mr. Brand would have spoke to eggs, and that's really a real thing. And we know just around Christmas time there how expensive eggs were. I'm not sure if the prices has gone down, but eggs escalated tremendously, and as Mr. Brown would have said, they didn't come any bigger. But the point is, there is a demand. There was a demand for egg. It was Christmas time. People do a lot of baking. People bake. I think the egg is used as a raising agent, if I'm correct. So people bake. People do so many things with egg. And we have to be so conscious. What we look at now is that they are now producing, an alternative to egg. This egg powder thing, and when you mix it, it's supposed to be egg and supposed to taste like egg. But the real question is, do we really investigate to see what this product or these products are made of? What's the ingredients? How can they affect us? If they could affect us, what are the side effects? If there are side effects? So it's really crucial time, and I know that we are a resilient people, and we could overcome if there's a cause to. So I have no doubt in that. Webbo, we would have heard a lot about Elon Musk and the role that he plays in the U.S. government. I think the acronym is DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. I think that's what the acronym stands for. And he would have said a lot of things in terms of giving workers at the federal level, warnings and stuff. And what we have seen in recent times is that whatever the cause, his platform, social media platform X, was attacked. There was a cyber attack. It was down for a number of hours. And, there were also attacks on the Tesla trucks that he invented, and also I think 2 of his X rockets and stuff like that, that costs so much money. But we all know that he's a billionaire worth something like $320 billion, and maybe those might just cost maybe a 2 or maybe a 50 million. Well, much more than 50 million. I think one of the cars would have cost about 80,000. So, but what I'm saying is that it might be just a drop in the bucket. But crucially, what we should be looking at is the trend of events, the utterances, and now what is happening. And maybe we could probably try to dive into it to see if they might have any connection, any linkage, it's just pure coincidence. Number of persons have varying views, but as we say, I guess it would take more deeper investigations to see exactly what is happening. And of course, they talk to Webbo about how we as a sovereign country, how should we align ourselves going forward with other countries, namely Cuba and other countries of the Caribbean, how they align themselves going forward with China and stuff like that. And I think that these are crucial times for the region. I believe that our politicians, our leaders, would have to come together, not as individual countries, but as CARICOM, not even the OECS at the OECS level, but at the CARICOM level, so we could be united. We need to come together as one block, because unity is in strength. So whatever we do, we have to have a united front in order to have some meaningful impact when it comes to the United States. Webbo.
Well, Roger, in terms of the Cuba matter, it is no secret that the islands of the Caribbean, OACS, CARICOM, at every forum that our leaders have had the opportunity to speak, they have always sought to support the or seek to persuade the U.S. of removing the embargo that they have had against Cuba for 50 plus years. At every forum we have sought to make the case and make the argument against that embargo against the people of Cuba. Cuba have been a real good friend to the entire region. Cuba have trained many of our doctors, many of our engineers, not only here from St. Kitts and Nevis, but throughout the entire region. And I believe that this pronouncement of what's being asked of these islands in the region is going to be a test. It is going to be a test for the true independence of these territories. Cuba is interwoven, so to speak, in the very fabric of our region, especially on the side of healthcare and medicine. They have had some remarkable doctors that have served the entire region. They have had some remarkable technicians who have performed exemplary service throughout the entire region. And I think that it is going to be a test for the region as to what will be the position and the final outcome of this. But Roger, I just wanted to say to you that the Caribbean have always stood with Cuba. Not that because we are friends with America that we cannot stand with someone who is not as friendly with the US as the US would like. So I think that situation is going to be a test for the region, and I believe that move and that tactics is only is in my mind a move to try and further isolate Cuba. I personally feel that after 50 years, perhaps the intent of what was embargoed against Cuba way back then, I think that have served its time. It have served its purpose, and I think that the time have, in my mind, long gone for Cuba to be welcomed back into the realms of nations. And sometimes when you seek to examine some of the policies that are being meted out from the great and mighty, the U.S., sometimes there seems to have always been some perhaps contradictory signals, so to speak, at times. But
Brian, let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Blessed good night, Webbo, and to the panel.
Good night.
Good night. Good night. A question I would like to ask Mr. Brand,
sure.
Minister of Public Works and Water. This surround the water. I know you guys getting a desalination plant, and I know that you have been getting it started out and stuff like that. But the question I want to ask is, will that water be distributed through the lines that are with the spring water? So will that water connect with the spring water? That's the question I would like to ask. Okay, closer to home. Thank you.
Carla, thank you for the question. The desalination plant project is a project that was negotiated by the former Foreign Affairs Minister, the Honorable Mark Brantley, one for St. Kitts and one for Nevis. We have completed the construction, connection, installation, whatever you want to call it, of our desalination plant. It has been in service, and yes, it has been placed into our water services. The quality of the water is just as comparable as what you would get from deep well drilling. It's just that the process is slightly different. The uniqueness about this particular desal plant here on Nevis, we are not using complete seawater. It's we are a little away from the sea. It's an area in the Butlers area that is away from the sea. We would have, and there's the water that comes in from the sea and drain into this area. That's the water that we are using. It's not necessarily 100% seawater. So
Brackish.
right, brackish water. So it's in the system, and I would say to you, caller, I would go further and say to you that in the Butlers area, we had a well down that went down recently, and the people of Nevis really was not even aware that the well went down, because the desal plant was able to put a little more pressure, so to speak, on the desal plant that was able to take up the slack, and there was not any effect that was felt. So yes, it's online, it's producing, and we are hoping that these two desal plants, in my mind, were what we call perhaps tests, so to speak, when it comes to desal here in St. Kitts and Nevis. You know that with all of the challenges that we are facing with global warming and the scarcity of water and the difficulty that we are facing in the short to medium and even the long term, we will have to take a longer and harder look at desal and the benefits that it can have for us as a nation and as a people.
Go ahead, Faifi.
Yeah, Webbo, I just wanted to respond to Bran, just to say make some comments based on what Bran was saying just before the caller called. Bran, yes, we as a Caribbean people, Caribbean nations, Caribbean governments would have stand in unison in terms of, how we stand up for Cuba. And yes, Cuba would have been really helpful in terms of health and medicine where we are concerned here in the Caribbean. And since around 1972-73, back in Fidel Castro, the various governments in America would have put on the embargo on Cuba, and then I think it was might have been the day before former President Biden limits office that he discontinued it. And then what we realized is that basically the first day in office by now President Trump, he would have put it back on. And we understand the utterances, and we understand how he acts, how he reacts, and how he does things. So, it's a different type of pressure that are now put to bear on government leaders. It was just basically, in my humble opinion, it was just said certain things cannot happen, and yes, we stood up and we speak out, but without any consequence, so to speak. But now the utterances of, if you stay in alignment, there might be possible consequences. There lies the difference. And when we really look at it, we have to ask ourselves, if President Trump supposed to go through with some of his utterances in terms of Cuba and the Caribbean and the rest of the Caribbean countries, what would we do? Would we forego the relationship with Cuba and support the United States of America? What is best for us as a country? What is best for us as a region? If we are given an ultimatum as it appears as if that is what the way it's heading, then what we do as a region would have some serious repercussions, whether we stick with America or we stick with Cuba. And we could understand how. Right now, there are a number of students from St. Kitts Nevis and from the region who are studying in Cuba. We would have had assistance, medical assistance from Cuba when we had COVID.
Absolutely.
You know, health practitioners, they flew to the various islands and they assisted. You know, a lot of technical assistance, you know, we have also. So what do we do? And we also know that, you know, the Americans, they are pulling back slowly but surely the US aid, and that too would have a negative impact on us. So we have to really do some serious thinking and introspection of ourselves.
Roger, there again, I think that the perhaps as an outsider looking in, there again, I think that perhaps the U.S. policy may be flawed, because
if it's not,
while the U.S. is saying to other countries that they are not to perhaps be engaged or engaging with China, and at the same time they are retrieving themselves, so to speak, from the rest of the world with a lot of these USAID and cooperation, and pulling away themselves from a lot of these treaties and so on. It just leaves the playing field for China to expand into some of these territories. So in one hand they are saying to many nations that we are cutting off some of the support. On the other hand, they are saying that you are not to be doing any business with some of these countries, but then they themselves, they are retreating from the world.
So they put you out of bread and can't give you biscuit. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening, gentlemen.
good evening.
Whatever our response should be, I think it should be collective.
Exactly.
Because essentially we're faced with an ultimatum. And we recall what happened the last time we declared our sovereignty to the U.S. Department of State. We were slapped with a FinCEN's advisory, which, as far as I know, still has not been lifted. And so, yes, the protocol might demand that the countries individually respond, because they were written to individually, apparently. But I think we should send a clear message to the Department of State that we are united in this, by making sure that the written responses are all identical from the whole of CARICOM. CARICOM can't respond because it wasn't written to CARICOM.
That's right.
But all the countries can respond with an identical response, and I think they would get the message, right? But really and truly, it's a game changer in the sense that it's an ultimatum, and we realize that it's a power thing, that the U.S. right now is very dismissive of countries that do not have any state, so to speak. And so it's going to be interesting. We really have to navigate the best way of approaching this. I mean, we can't go like a bull in a china shop and just say to hell with the U.S.
Caller, can I ask a question?
Sure.
If what you're saying is indeed true, and I have no reason to doubt you, and if this thing is as serious as it appears, then why up to now the heads of CARICOM haven't met to come up with a unified response, albeit that it would be from each individual territory?
I think the foreign ministers met. on Sunday.
Oh, they did?
Yes.
That's what I understood.
Yes.
Right? But I thought by now there would have been responses, because to delay this just plays into the hands of the U.S. in terms of, it gives the impression that we are divided on this, and we're wringing our hands, wondering what to do, you know. And so, you know, our response should have been swifter, you know. I don't know what they decided at the meeting.
Caller, I recognize the voice from week to week, and in my humble opinion, you are a very knowledgeable person. Hence the reason why I'm asking these questions. If this is so important to us, not just as a country but as a region, should it just be the foreign ministers meeting? Shouldn't be the head of government, the prime ministers, and they could, in my opinion, you know, take along the foreign ministers. If this indeed so important.
It is that important, and I hope it is not an attempt to shift things on the foreign ministers. Yes, they may have the expertise and so on, and know the diplomatic jargon and know how to deal with their counterparts, because that's the other thing too. They might be saying that, well, it's the Department of State, which is essentially the foreign ministry of the United States, and so it's the foreign ministers. You know, they have this thing, this ego thing. I call it an ego thing, where prime ministers supposed to discuss with prime ministers or presidents, and foreign ministers supposed to discuss with their counterparts. It doesn't interchange, right? So maybe that might be what's at play here. But I agree with you. It should be at the top level. This thing really should be. They should have a prime ministerial input in this. And not only that, they should also canvass the support of regional organizations like PAHO, Pan American World Organization, the OAS, because there are a whole host of countries that are affected by this. And you know, if we picked off one by one, we know what's going to happen. It's going to be like Panama, you know, just say what you want to do with Panama and get them to do exactly what you want, right? Make it a whole hemispheric effort, well, the southern hemisphere at least, to respond to this so that it has more clout. Whether or not it would work is another story, because you see the approach that the president has. You know, my way or the highway.
Okay.
All right then.
Okay, thank you. As the caller had mentioned, approach. I'd like to stay on the same topic and take another approach, a different approach. By using this statement that I like to repeat, it wasn't invented by me. If a person tells you who they are, believe them, maybe. If a person shows you who they are, believe them for sure. And I would like to link it, not to concentrate so much on the United States, but our region and home here. Anybody believes that statement? Anybody wants to make a comment in it? If people tell you who they are, believe them maybe. If people show you who they are, believe them for sure.
Webbo, it's definitely truth. It's all truth. We must understand first and foremost how the human psyche, the human, is made up.
Okay, so the comment makes sense to you.
Yes.
Brand you.
It makes sense, Webbo.
Okay, Naya.
Action speaks louder than words.
Okay. Now, in this, as I said, we're under the same topic, a different approach. Because that's what happened in the last election, right? The gentleman told them who he was. He showed them who he was. I guess everybody see the reports where some folks from Venezuela and other areas and stuff like that, he told them, when I get there, I'm going to deport you.
Yes, he did.
And I see an example of a lady from Venezuela crying. She did hear him say so, but she didn't believe he will do it. And some of them got fired by him. They still have to pay the bills. And they're crying. But the crying can't pay the bills.
Sure.
Okay, now what's the connect? In the islands, you have the same politics. You have the same leaders. When I say the same, I mean we in terms of structure. You have people who, we have islands, countries, you have parties, you have people who govern, etc., etc. You listen to the same sort of rhetoric sometimes. Most of what you hear sometimes is cussing. Let me not use a real politician. So Naya and Fifield are running, and both of them cussing one another. You go and you elect the one who cussed the best. And then when he does not deliver what you want, you make a noise, but you still got to pay your bills. But that's what the man told you he will do. I'm making any sense? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, well,
let me take this first. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening. And how are you tonight?
Well, I'm good.
I'm just trying to give me a little chance. I want to turn down the...
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Now, the U.S. has threatened before, you know. They were warned not to have any diplomatic relationship with Cuba in the 60s. You remember that?
No.
And Trinidad, I think it's Jamaica was the first to go ahead, and then the rest did it. Now, how I look at it, all right, if you don't want us to have the Cubans, would you be willing to give us medical doctors at your cost to fill the gap? A counter offer is good enough, you know.
Yes.
We explained this is our situation. We can't afford to train enough. We have all of these shortages and we want to have good health. So would you be willing just a couple days to send the Peace Corps?
Yes.
Well, you negotiate. Everyone we give up, we want one of equal qualification. Not just no. What do you think about that? Is it happening with Canada? Canada say, all right, you want to tariff? And then they go on to the heart of it. They say, all New York and all those who get in the electricity from us, we're going to tariff there. So we need to have another proposal, not just say we're not going to or we can't. You could say we are willing only if. So I don't know what you and the others think about it. Along up.
Okay.
You see, making America great again. Nobody knows what step he's going to take to make America great again. It sounds good, but I suppose for us not to deal with Cuba, then we have to send all of our students, probably, to America. Maybe they have policies to facilitate them. And American doctors might dominate the region. That's, I suppose, what the caller is talking about. And she referred to it as a counter offer. I'm not sure if it would be, but the whole concept of making America great again can entail a lot of things that we never really thought of and will be implemented in that towards that endeavor, make America great again. But I am not sure if we are really strong enough in support of Cuba. I think after Obama had removed the sanction, we get a little braver as Caribbean leaders and Caribbean people in support of Cuba. But I think we've been half stepping towards Cuba is who reach out to us. It's not we reach out to Cuba. And we realize the benefit that we can have and the privilege we can enjoy in dealing with Cuba. I think we've been slow in doing that as Caribbean leaders, really. And really, my personal feeling is that all will not come together on this matter. That is my personal feeling about it. And maybe that's why we haven't heard anything about the foreign ministers meeting yet. I don't think we all is going to come together bearing the same notion. And yes, foreign ministers is okay. I don't see prime ministers or heads of government need to be there. But my personal feeling, let me say again, is that we probably would not be all agreeing on terms, in terms of our reaction to the so-called ultimatum.
Might I just say, in terms of the foreign ministers going, etc., it's just part of the diplomatic process.
Yes.
Yes.
You put one of you guys in them to they bring back to you, and that's just part of the process. That's how things are structured.
Yes.
Webbo, I put something on the table which I tend to want to agree with in some aspect, where you indicated, Naya, that perhaps all of the islands in this region may not necessarily be in the same or singing from the same hymn sheet, so to speak, on this issue. The reality is, gentlemen and listeners, that there are some islands in the Caribbean would be more impacted by the US than others. And I think that if the United States, for example, were to make a proclamation to implement certain restrictions on Caribbean islands, Caribbean territories, there are some who would be impacted perhaps in a much greater way than others. Let's look at a real example. Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis. Barbados is the home of a United States embassy in the Caribbean. St. Kitts and Nevis does not have a United States embassy. Perhaps Barbados might be saying, but wait a minute. And those are real consideration that these islands would have to deal with.
Jobs.
Right? You remove the US embassy out of Barbados, or you close it down. You see the impact that it can have on. Antigua had an embassy in Antigua. When that embassy closed in Antigua, it created some significant hardship for Antigua. Right? And it also created some additional burden on a number of the neighboring territories, because now persons from St. Kitts and Nevis now had to go all the way to Barbados. So every single decision that is being made will have varied implications on each specific island. Now, the caller spoke about counter offers, and she is absolutely correct. Right? She is absolutely correct. Will the various territories will be minded to bind together, so to speak, their various own individual requirements into one request and say, well, you want us to do this? St. Kitts and Nevis may want A, Barbados may want B.
Let me
And
take
package
this.
it that way.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yeah, it's me again.
Yes.
Now, do we recall the Venezuela thing when they were trying to make their position? And the CARICOM, maybe only one or two, they said, no, we are not aligned. So it is that we have not stood up. We have.
Yes.
And we do business with them. So we're not hopeless. Because when we drop that hopeless kind of a conversation,
Different leadership.
I mean, America was threatening,
Yes.
oh, you can't do this with Venezuela. But they were not willing to sell us the oil on the same time.
Different
You
leadership.
understand?
Yes.
That's why I say you put it to them. All right. You don't want us to have them, then you will have to agree to send your people. Because anybody could talk. You see what is happening? Is backtracking. Anytime he comes up again, oh, he can tariff this and tariff that. But if you don't do anything and go, oh, well, you know, we need him. We're not aligned. We don't really, America get more from us than we get from them. Look at our trade. It looks at the trade. Our trade balance is what? We could never compete with them. But you see, this thing are trying to intimidate. You see how the other countries pushing back?
Yes.
He's now understanding that while he and Elon Musk think that they rule the world, God rule, and other countries not afraid of him. Maybe he thought that everybody would be shivering. And even in the States, the people who sell the agriculture products to Canada, they say, look, we want to trade. And he promised to carry down the rate of inflation. He said today, we got to enjoy a little hardship. Well, he trying out Elon Musk's vehicle. Pressure. And in the UN, we vote against them for Cuba. It's nothing new.
That's right.
193 against America. China, well, it's a kind of late Chinese done here. And then is neglect. If they were investing in Africa and Caribbean, we would have to depend on China. So you're going to come now we're moving. People are standing up to Trump. Every time you open your mouth, you got to backtrack. Because China said tariff for tariff. He didn't expect that. He's going to make them a state. Really? We got to show our strength. It isn't the first time we stand up to them. Every time we go to the UN, we say publicly,
Yes.
we support China, Cuba, and we don't hide it. A lot of pressure was put on us, to get out the man from Venezuela. We stood up. So don't make us think like this is a weak. Unless you stand up to America, they're not going to back down. And what they actually do is they're putting all the countries against themselves. So while they're trying to make America great, other people will make America small. Look at the stock market.
Yes.
He's so confused. The stock market is saying, look, we're ready for a recession. It changes and whatnot. How does that fit? And when you go and you pass your UCR, and the Republicans have to go back home to their constituency and face people who lost their job, there's going to be an uproar. So whoever making it feel is winning, sorry for him. Not so easy. We state our position. All right, you don't want us to have them, you will have to substitute. Just like them, tariff for tariff. All right then.
All right.
Yep, I still want to concentrate on our islands and our thing. You see, because what I find is that we have too much energy for other people's business, and not realizing and seeing how it is affecting us, right? And then we grumbling and blaming other people. What happened? I am not correct?
I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
So you would like me to say it again?
Yes, please.
We sometimes have too much energy for other people's business. So when in America the leaders are oppressing the people, we have a lot of energy for that. But if it is happening here, we don't or can't say anything.
Or some.
So when, let me take this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes. It's not that simple. I mean, just having that kind of bravado, right? Bravado. The fact is, even though we buy more from them than the other way, the thing is, what we do get from them in terms of the tourism and sanctioning our CBI and so on is much more. They can kill us by those two things, right? So we have to be careful, right? What I would say, and you notice what they've done, they've put pressure on the leaders and the higher officials. And so you have people like Gonzalez saying that, well, if it comes, a choice comes down to a choice between my 60-year-olds having good medical care and me getting a U.S. visa, I know which one to take, essentially, right? And we're really pretty much the same thing. But are all the other leaders willing to do that? So it's putting pressure directly on them, which I guess also accounts for the fact that we're not hearing from all of them. Okay, some are braver than some. I think Deacon Mitchell in Grenada, he came out with a strong statement as well. But the others are kind of quiet, and I guess they feel the pressure. But I do agree that we can probably do some negotiation, because what really is behind this, they want to put pressure on Cuba. Okay? And so maybe we can say that, okay, we're accustomed to that strong support for Cuba in the United Nations, we will tone it down. I don't know how that would work with them. We can also say, and we have this thing of just intervening in the Venezuela-Guyana thing when it flares up. We should have stuck to it and try and come up with a solution to that problem, so that the region remain a zone of peace, and take that off the table, because that's another, you can bet your life if it succeeds with Cuba, right? You're going to do the same thing with Venezuela, want us to cut ties with Venezuela, right? And by the way, this friends of all and enemies of none thing, that don't apply anymore. That used to apply when you really had an unaligned movement. You don't have that now. India seems more prepared to bend over backwards to the States than anything else. So we can't depend on that. So we basically on our own, and so we have to really navigate properly, smartly, to get through this. Because like I said, this man, he's not making jokes. It's a case of either you with us or against us. And that's just the environment that we have to deal with. All right, then.
Yes, Webbo. I was trying to consider what you were saying. Are you saying that we are now discussing what is going on in America and American leadership oppressing its people while it's happening here, and we're not saying anything?
No, I said if you have a situation, if that's hypothetical,
Okay.
where American leaders are oppressing the people, we have energy to talk and dispel that. If we have the same thing happening here, we sort of pretend that it's not happening. And what I'm trying to say is make the point. What is happening in America? Is any of it happening in the Caribbean? When do we have any leaders in the Caribbean who behave, for instance, something like Trump? This is what is important, very important as well, to see whether that is happening there. We have to make sure or look to see if it's not happening here.
I totally agree with you.
Okay, so you get it.
I totally agree with
yeah,
you.
okay.
It might happen in different forms and so forth.
Because we got some rough rhetoric here, you know.
We got some rough rhetoric here.
I mean, people going and just cussing people. I mean, I use Fifield and Naya, right? Because they're not in the ring. But I'm saying, perchance, Fifield and Naya in the ring. All we get from them is cussing one another. And then one of them gets into the big chair. And then we now start to cuss, say they ain't doing nothing. But they didn't promise you they're going to do anything. What they persuaded you was that they could cuss good. Not true?
Yes.
Well, everybody gone silent.
No,
not true, Brand?
I frequently hear you say that the public is not stupid.
Of course not.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I never blame
but
the
that's why I'm speaking on behalf of the public. To let you know that we all are not stupid.
Good. I never blame the electorate, and so but saying that, I suppose we are as you know, when we look at America today, you know, because they elect someone like Trump, but Trump ideology was very clear and simple: make America great again. He never really say how and the extent to which he will go. And a lot of people talking about you know, isolating Cuba. I don't really see Cuba as a big thing for America.
I'm going to disagree with you.
I disagree with him too.
He told them. Because I just gave you an example. A lady said he told us, but I didn't believe he can do it.
He told him that he one of the things that he said, Maya, that he was going to bring down the prices of everything drastically or something to that effect.
Yeah, but were we expecting this ultimatum with Cuba? We probably was not. We probably wasn't thinking that far and that deep. And a lot of people talking about they want to isolate Cuba. I don't think Cuba is a big thing on Trump's mind. But Trump's want to bring America into the focus. All the doctors must be American that feeds the Caribbean. All the students from the Caribbean should find themselves in America and nowhere else. It's an ideology that, you know, can basically employ any and everything to make America great again. To me, it's not really about isolating Cuba.
No,
it's bringing America totally into the focus.
You might get the whole message, you know. Make America great again. When was America great in his view? What year or what period of time?
I don't know.
Okay. So first, know that. And you're going to find it was before the 60s. Maybe the 50s, 40s, and 20s. What they were fighting for was equality. When America was great. What did they pass in the 60s and stuff like that?
That's right.
Affirmative action.
That's it. Right for a black man to vote.
Make America great again. Go back to the days before that.
That's it.
Why you think Elon and them changing up and getting rid of all those things so that we can make America great again? As Edric Stanley taught me. Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
You got to look between the lines. What did Einstein say? Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think, to analyze. By the way, so that you know, a lot of these folks in leadership in our region who are very charismatic, they will learn about history. Because some bright folks are going to come along 30, 40, 50 years later when they can no longer dominate the bully pulpit. And they're going to read and analyze the utterance. They're not going to just go by what they say and wrote, you know. They're going to look at everything and say, but this thing don't make sense. So, give her a little homework. Make America great again. When was it great? More time for Edric. Are you following me?
Well, one would think that America was great when there was no challenge to America. There was no China, there was no European Union, there was no United Caribbean, CARICOM.
But there was United Kingdom.
That's right.
There was the United Kingdom, and well, they triumphed over the United Kingdom in a big way. So they had no.
But they had a time.
They had no challenge to rule the world. So is that the time that Trump is talking about?
All I'm doing is just put you to think. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, one of the things that I'm not sure if Naya is following you. You following Naya?
I'm tagging along.
I'll help you along. Leading up to this particular election, Webbo, in the US, there was this great effort to disenfranchise a certain class of people leading up to this election. Webbo put it in a kind of way of make America great again, and he brought in the period of the 50s and the 60s.
I grasped that.
And we know what took place in the 50s and 60s. The civil rights movement and affirmative action and those kind of things. What is taking place right now is almost a complete erosion of. Remember when the helicopter and the plane crashed there in New York the other day? Mm-hmm. Remember what was one of the statement or one of the utterances that was made?
Tell me.
Because of this affirmative action.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of carving out, so to speak, this notion of making America great again is designed a particular way where it is an attempt to exclude a certain group or a certain class of people.
Okay.
The United States of America, in the last 50, 60 years, the economy has expanded significantly on the quote-unquote cheap Mexican labor, cheap immigrant labor from and carving out and having them removed from. That's why I said earlier that I personally feel that this strategy and this is flawed, because you are removing from, whether illegal or entering into the U.S. By proper means, you are basically trying to carve out and remove a certain class and a certain section of people from the land space or the land mass of the United States that provides a certain service to the engine and the growth of the country. And on that basis, instead of making your country great again, I am of the view that you are creating some serious internal difficulties for your country.
Maybe that's the plan.
Well, I'm on the slippery slope of understanding what you're saying. Meaning, possible a little bit in a sense that it's you can achieve that. You can't bring back America to where it was prior to the 1960s. You cannot make America just white people. You know, you cannot remove from high places all these people who have made good to America simply because they are from elsewhere and they are of a different complexion.
But you know, Naya, that before they put those affirmative action and these things and so in place, why Martin Luther King and so on fought and died and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is what America was.
Yes.
You don't know they had things blacks only, white only, and
Yes,
etc. and so on and so forth.
yes.
That is what America was, right? Now, the societies, most societies, are built on the instruction of the Bible. You agree with that? And then the interpretation of it.
Well, yeah.
Right? Now, everybody who hears, read perhaps, you will reap what you sow. Right? However, when you have certain authority and power, you don't consider that. That is out of your range until it begins to happen, and then you begin to think people walk drumbeat on you. But those instruction is what ultimately govern.
And they have
You have the United Nations Charter and stuff like that. You have big, powerful nations, and you have small ones like us. And they said not because they're small, give them a voice, don't take advantage of them. Right? That's the world order that we were cruising by along with. And this guy, not this guy alone, you know, because people think it's this one guy alone. It is not so. So you got to, these kind of things, you got to think deep. And then, having gotten it, let us make the connect. I keep telling you all, we have the same kind of rhetoric here in the islands. I find people cuss people too much and only want to get into certain positions and offices to hurt and spite people. That's not true?
Yeah, we have that.
Look like you're all afraid to say it's true.
No, we have that.
Oh, okay.
We have that.
So it's true. And you're okay with that?
Of course not.
Okay.
That is one of the stands.
So that is what I'm saying. When it is America or outside, I don't have to ask you all to respond. I don't get a chance to talk, as a matter of fact. You agree with that?
Yes.
So people will ask me, what happened? You went home or something, Ollie? That's not true?
Yes, but
Okay, walk with me. I'm finished for the night. Go ahead. Go ahead, 5 years.
Yeah, Webbo, I suspect that we have, maybe if I could term it this way, a syndrome that we could maybe attach to somewhat, the saying that when you're in the kitchen you feel the heat, it's better to stay in the frying pan than to jump in the fire. Simple meaning, when things like what you spoke about happening in further afield, the US and wherever, then it appears as if that we feel more comfortable speaking to it. Maybe because our utterances.
Let me just take this for you feel. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening. Good evening, gentlemen.
Could you speak much louder?
Yes, good evening, gentlemen. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, Webbo speaking there in
Why do I get the feeling that you have a radio or something on giving us a feedback? So what I want to do for me, turn that down.
Is on, but I'm on the outside.
Yeah, but if it's on loud.
Yes,
But what I would like you to do, right?
Sound better?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah, I was saying that Webbo was speaking in parables, and I'm wondering if what is happening in the United States, and something that happened here some elections ago. I wonder if there's a parallel between both of them. Okay, since this takes so long, you remember we had an election here where people were being deported. And I will leave it at that. So I just still ask the question, if you think that there's a parallel between what is happening in the United States and what took place some years ago here.
And you said that I was speaking in parables.
Yeah, well, because Maya said that he was trying to understand, and then Mr. Brand said he was going to help him along the way.
So, is it fair to conclude then if a person speak and someone said they don't understand, it follows the person speaking in parables?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Jesus spoke in parables in a group of people, and they didn't understand.
Okay, so if a person speak in parable, that means what? That's bad?
No, it's not bad.
Okay.
Just
checking.
Whoever is listening probably need to decipher what is being said.
Okay, all right. So the fact that you say I spoke in parables, you're not implying that I speak in rubbish, right?
No.
Okay. All right. That's it?
Well,
You're done?
I asked a question. I'm a hang up. I want to hear what the answer.
No, Mr. Brand is suggesting so that he didn't get your question. Anybody got the question?
Yes, I got that
Okay,
question.
so can you answer him?
The question was that can we compare what is going on in America to what happened here in some elections that's gone by, which was people was deported. That's what the caller asked.
Right, so who can answer?
Well, I can't see much of a nexus and an example what took place in the past election as comparing to what is going on today in America, because you must remember that Trump got his votes as it relates to black and Spanish people was massively increased. So I am not sure if we can make that connection. I mean, now we see him, as he promised in his campaign, that he would undertake one of the biggest mass deportation of people. That's after the election. It looks to me like the caller was talking prior to an election.
Mm-hmm.
And so I cannot really make that connection. in an absolute way.
Slightly different.
And to me, I mean, yes, Trump is saying if you're illegal in America, you go home, and he's of course that was part of his campaign. But we also are aware of the fact that his votes in those particular sectors or groups of people was massively increased this time around. Why was Trump so successful in this election when he told the people who he is? As Webbo said, maybe you can believe, but now he's showing you who he is. So you must be closer to believing, right? I suppose I'm not one who into too much conspiracy theory, to be quite honest. You know, I like to deal with, you know, an action as it relates to the fulfillment of objectives, and it looks to me like what he's on about with Cuba, and also with the deportation of people, even with the ideas of tariff, is to bring America more into the focus and to make America more a beneficiary. It may not turn out to be, of all his policies and actions that we are seeing today. I'm not one who buy in the theory that Trump don't like this kind of people or that kind of people. I believe it's all geared towards his idea of making America great again. I am not one who believes that the Trump sees America prior to the 1960s as a great America because there was no affirmative action and there was no, you know, rights to vote by black people and so forth. I'm not buying that. You want me to buy that?
I'm listening to you.
No, I'm not buying that at all. You know, he just have very twisted ways and very what can I say? It's a revolution that is taking place as it relates to America. Trump is on about creating a revolution, almost like some kind of renaissance, which is impacting globally. And how about the fact that America was taken for granted for so long? You know,
Naya,
I'm sure we can deny that.
You said that America was taken advantage of for so long.
But let me also make that point.
Yeah.
That I am not in support of all of Trump policies and what he's talking about Cuba and all them foolishness there. But I'm trying to put myself in his shoe, you know, and the objectives which he has set, mainly making America great again.
The U.S. held up themselves as the quote-unquote gold standard of...
Oh, okay. I had promised I'm done for the night. But I could come back and explain again?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Mr. Naya, this revolution that you're talking about is going back, right? What happened was, in the days, you ever heard about slavery?
Yes.
Okay. And what color of people were the slaves?
Black people.
Man,
I
thought you all invited me back in.
Yeah,
but you're not working with me.
Yeah, working with you.
Okay, black people. Okay. So what happened was, they had all sort of signs and privileges and so on that said whites only and stuff like that. Some persons came along, and some of them were leaders, and they had the ideology, the thinking that this is not fair. Because though these people have a different color of skin, they are people too. So they sought to put certain things in place so that they can be treated equally as humans. As time progressed, they put different things in place, changed the constitution, made amendments to the constitution. They have affirmative action, and they begin to have programs and in the workplace and so on and so forth.
Right to vote and all of that.
Yes.
Okay. The people who were in charge, or who were denied then of these opportunities, because if you and me and my tech here, and we're not 10 people normally sit at the table, and 10 of you more heavyweights. But then they say, well, Webbo and his technician here, why don't you include them? But they're only 10. But say, okay, bring in those two. So 8 heavyweights will still be there, but 8 plus 2 is still 10. So the others did not really like that. They preferred when it was 10 heavyweights. Are you following me?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is happening now is that these people now feel aggrieved. So they want things back to where it was before. And that's all they're doing. Dismantling the preferential treatment, as they call it, right? Get rid of everybody, right? Everybody's going to feel some pain. And then what is going to happen down the road, when they realize that this one got axed, they apologize and they make good. So that's all they're doing, going back to where it was. So, you get it now?
He said don't buy the target.
No, I didn't ask him to buy it. What I did, I asked him if he get it. It was for free. You get it now?
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
All right. And okay, so I'm done now.
Okay.
Okay.
Webbo, even back when Trump was first elected, there were utterances of him being a part of the Ku Klux Klan. And when we look at history and we realize South Africa and the apartheid and stuff like that, and when we look at the fact that Elon Musk is closely knitted to the administration in America and where he's from, it leaves a lot to be desired. He's from South Africa, as all of us know by now. And when we really think about all of these utterances and the actions that have been taken and stuff like that, we really have to think deep and go way beyond the surface and ask ourselves, what have we put ourselves in, or what we are in, and what is to come. And I believe that these are real questions that we have to sort answers for, in order for us to really understand the gravity of what's next.
Webbo, there is this apparent attempt to, as it were, to change the world order, and to remake, so to speak, what not necessarily a perfect world order, but a world order, so to speak, that where persons in my mind were getting along. All of these talk about tariff left, right and center, and just trying to what appears to be almost breaking all of the rules, so to speak. As Edgic would say, he would fail.
Yeah.
the signs are all around that whenever there is this, you have this schoolyard bully, and he wants to beat up everybody in the schoolyard, and one or two person stand up to him, and he back down, and he run in a corner. And I am seeing signs, Naya, that there are other countries that are banding themselves together,
Yes.
right, to say, listen,
Not yet.
what you are doing is morally wrong, right? What you are doing is disturbing, so to speak, the world order. When we are here in 2025 listening and talking about literally a tariff war, a border war between United States and Canada, we are in a bad place.
Why are we so afraid of change? You can't tell me the world has been a good place prior to Trump, with all these wars that was ongoing and started and all kind of things, the Ukraine war, the Palestinian war. Why are we so afraid to change?
I never said that I was afraid of change.
Well, it's something that seems to be, confronting me. That the world was such in a mess. I'm not saying Trump can make it better, but we are dealing with massive change. America at this point decides not to be the world police anymore. They ask of NATO that they pull, they pay a greater share of protecting Europe, which is most countries.
Naya,
let
me ask you a question.
European countries that make up NATO. There is this desire to end the war, however imbalanced the consequence might be, and the overwhelming desire to end that war in Ukraine. Some people seem they want to see it go on. 2,000 men are dead every day, and sometimes and even Trump relationship with Putin, to me, is the greatest thing. Okay, because these are two superpowers that are always in conflict. Are we talking about real peace?
So
are we talking about global leaders?
Global
leaders being friendly, as opposed to carrying this Cold War on and on and on and on when it's not supposed to stop long time? But yes, we are dealing with a situation now where Trump wants to see peace, and sacrifice will have to be made. And even in that regard, we are afraid of that kind of change in terms of global vision.
You really believe, Naya, that Putin is going to stop at the borders of Ukraine?
Well, I can believe that. Why can't I believe that?
You can believe that?
Yes. Why can't I believe that?
And they want to take control of Ukraine?
Why can't I believe that?
Putin's ultimate goal. One, you see the level of resistance that Putin exhibited at the thought of Ukraine joining NATO. So Putin
well, it's the same kind of thing we have when
Putin whole aim here is
coming to the
is
Caribbean,
to try and expand and reclaim territory under the old USSR banner. It's not going to stop at Ukraine. And right now,
hence that's why they were.
Right now, in Putin's mind, he have a guy in the White House that he can
twist and turn.
I don't really think so, I don't think so. That is what a lot of people is asked to believe, really. But I think the overwhelming objective for Trump is peace. Is peace. And the fact that, sacrifice will have to be made by both sides. Yes, it's unfortunate the way the Ukraine leader was dealt with in the U.S. But he has his support in Europe, and one would hope that we can come. Well, he has within the last 12 hours or 24 hours agree with a deal to have a 30 days ceasefire. And I hope that that can be prolonged, and that path can be extended, because really, for me also, peace should be the ultimate objective. At this point, they've been fighting now for years, and so many people have died. For piece of territory. Yeah. Sometimes.
But the question is, Naya, if we want peace, why are we still manufacturing so much weapons?
Well, you see,
what are we going to do with that?
Well, when America decided to send no more weapons to Ukraine, everybody thinks.
Then Russia will take over. Then Russia would overrun Ukraine like a tsunami wave taking over the whole of Charles.
I had signed out again, but can I say one more thing as we exit?
Yeah.
Somebody asked, if you're talking about peace, why are you building so much weapons and stuff like that? You ever heard the quotation, walk softly,
but we have a big stick,
carry a big stick?
That's right.
But that's what Trump said, for America to be respected by strength, and hoping not to employ such strength.
That's the last word. This program repeats at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Join Keith Scarborough at 8 o'clock on Thursday evening for Government at Work. A place to spend all of your evenings right here in the Eastern Caribbean Spa House. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Talk that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Views and opinions expressed on the preceding program are solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Rivers Broadcasting Company Limited or its